We're at today at St James the Less, Hadley, near Southend in Essex, Church of England church and cemetery. There's something slightly different about this church, or at least the cemetery, is that it's actually dedicated to the fallen of the First and Second World War in particular, but not exclusively. And that's from the fallen in wars all over the British Commonwealth. Unfortunately, the church is closed at the moment. I always find cemeteries very peaceful places. I have no problem of sitting, meditating and praying. Some people find it creepy, but for me, it's not the dead you've got to worry about, it's the living. The graves go back to the mid-1800s. This is a small plot. What you can see now is for those that have been cremated. We wanted our ashes to be buried on holy ground, consecrated ground, and not just scattered to the four winds. This is an interesting monument. It's the monument burial place of the Stibbard family. Now the Stibbards are a family-run chain of funeral directors. And many people in the Southend area, Westcliff, Adley and surrounding areas will probably turn to Stibbards to take care of their lost ones, to either bury them or cremate them. So here we are, amongst the dead, where one day if similar surroundings we'll all end up if the good Lord doesn't come before. A truth that no one can deny, but at least the first part. About a week or so ago, I was at Speaker's Corner, Hyde Park, London, on a Sunday afternoon. Well, most of the day actually. The place of free speech. There were people from the Muslim faith, Christian, various denominations, atheists, political movements. It's a hotbed of discussion. Sometimes it can get a bit rowdy, and of late, sadly, it's also spawned some violence, which is totally unnecessary. And apart from speaking with various people and sharing, I've realised there's something actually that happens every day in our lives. How many of us are really seeking truth? Really hungry for the truth? And I'll give you an example of what happens at Speaker's Corner. A Christian will stand up, for example, and talk, and maybe mention some verses of the Bible, and then a Muslim will turn up and say and try and prove the Christian wrong, and people will butt in with their own comments. But in general, what I see was that the majority of people, they'll take one piece of information and argue against it, and the other one will argue against it. But they're not really, they don't go away and dig and see if these things are true. I think in the book of Acts in the Holy Bible, I think, Luke is attributed to writing Acts of the Apostles. He said there was a particular group of people that came to hear Paul speaking about the gospel of Christ. And he said these people were more noble because they went away and diligently searched if these things that Paul said were true. How many of us today diligently search? Or do we just attach ourselves to something which we like, seems to seem right, goes with our philosophy or our religion? And that's what I think the world is today, with political parties and the mess that's going on in our politics and society general. It's all about just slogans, sound bites. We haven't got the time or the mental energy to search and work out things for ourselves. Now, don't get me wrong, I mean, I'm a Catholic, and I had my problems with the Catholic Church as I grew up. I I didn't think that the things that it was saying were true. They were just made up. They're not in the Bible, as some Protestants told me. But bit by bit, I started to search whether these things were true. Now, I'm not expecting you, the viewer, to believe that. You have to make your own search. But I would advise, before you start arguing or just Googling the answers that suit your narrative, to really dig. There's one thing I'm convinced of now, absolutely convinced, and I don't have to look any further. Because not only with my intellect and my understanding do I understand that Jesus Christ came, was born of a virgin, walked this earth, preached goodness, the kingdom of heaven, was persecuted, died innocently on the cross and rose again. It's gone beyond intellectual knowledge. Sinner that I am, and a great sinner I am, Christ has still been so gracious to me that I know Christ is real just as much as I know any of you are real or my family are real. I don't need to be proved anymore, to search any more truths. However, the more that I look into history and the scriptures and the church fathers, the more it increases my faith. I believe the Catholic Church is the one true church that has the full portion of grace which Christ wants to pour out on the human race. It's not to say that those that are outside the Catholic Church do not have any grace in their lives. I'm saying that the full, what Christ wants for us, you will not find deeper, higher, lower, wider than a holy Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is true, and it's the true church. Of course, there's a million questions that the inquirer would ask, and that's not the time for this short video. It's out there. I would suggest, instead of listening to what Protestants say, or non-Catholics, or even Catholics who don't know their faith, you want to know what the Catholic faith actually believes, get hold of the Catechism of the Catholic Church. If you really want to know, it's got everything which is binding on the Catholic. And if you can't afford it, it's there online. You can just type in Catechism of the Catholic Church, and the Vatican have got a website there, and you can read it for yourself online. It's a good starting place. There's such a misunderstanding through ignorance of what the Catholic Church believes. And friends, I say to you, it's well worth time and energy searching the truth, searching what Christ wants for us through His church. As He said to St. Peter, "On this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." Well, here we are. over 2,000 years later, and the Catholic Church rolls on despite its problems, despite the attempts to break it down, despite the sin of many of its members like me. But what would you expect? The Catholic Church is a spiritual hospital. It's a hospital for the sick. And we all have that deadly sickness called sin. And there's only one cure for it. That's Jesus Christ. What he done for us by becoming incarnate of the Virgin Mary, by suffering under Pontius Pilate, by being crucified and died and was buried, and he rose again on the third day and ascended into heaven, where he is now seated at the right hand of God the Father Almighty. From there he shall come again to judge the living and the dead. Both me and you and those that lay in these graves. I hope this short video gives you at least something to think about truth, about life, and about death. Whether you agree or whether you don't agree, we're all going to end up back in the ground, from ashes to ashes, dust to dust. From the earth we came, and from the earth we shall return.